Cool. First of all, welcome everybody. My name is Rebecca Sturdman and I am with SPC as the Kiwa coordinator, and I'd like to also invite Matilde to turn on her video and introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Matilde Kraft and I'm the Kiwa Project Development Coordinator at SPREP. Thank you.
And thank you very much for making the time to come and join us today. We're hoping that you'll enjoy this. We have some guests from MyCost who will also be speaking. They're our mystery guests for the session, and we're hoping that you'll enjoy their insights as well. So this webinar is about the 2024 call for regional projects, and it's going to be a deep dive into applications and how you put those together, and also a little bit of a refresh as to who can apply and how and that sort of thing as well, in case you missed the last webinar, which is also available on the website. Matilde, could you go to the next page? We're just going to start with a little refreshing video about what we're working on, and that'll set the scene.
Climate change, human health, food and water security, natural disasters, and biodiversity loss are some of the pressing issues and societal challenges facing our planet. In the Pacific, communities are at the forefront of climate change impact challenges. We urgently need to adapt. Through nature-based solutions, we're able to address these challenges. Nature-based solutions are actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural and modified ecosystems in ways that address societal challenges so that it provides benefits and even co-benefits for both communities and environment. What do nature-based solutions look like? A nature-based solution uses the tools that nature already provides. The solutions often enhance existing natural or man-made infrastructure and encourage long-term economic, social, and environmental benefits. Some examples include a farmer planting trees amongst his crops to provide shade, retaining water, and providing habitat for wild species. Or a row of bushes planted along the farmer's field to slow the wind and retain the soil. A hotel owner planting mangroves along the beach to hold together coastlines and protect them from the encroaching ocean. A city manager planting trees and grasses, for example vetiver grass, along steep slopes to stabilize the slope and prevent landslides. A community organization that educates on the importance of protecting fringing reef around an island to maintain it as natural barriers against high waves and protect fishes and other living things for food and maintain a healthy environment. An urban planner protecting or restoring a nearby forest crucial to the city's water supply. Traditional fishing ground owners and indigenous groups that creates a marine protected area around a coral reef area to ensure sustainable fish harvest for her community, or even a government actively restoring the productive capacity of degraded land. Through the Kiwa initiative, local but also regional project leaders from 19 eligible Pacific Island countries and territories, including the 3 French overseas territories, can access funds and technical assistance to implement nature-based solution projects. A capacity building program on nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation project development and mainstreaming into policy for eligible governments and NGOs is provided by the Pacific Community, the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, and the Kiwa Initiative Secretariat. Calls for local projects with very small to medium-sized grants from 25,000 euros up to 400,000 euros are managed by the IUCN Oceania Regional Office. Calls for regional projects offer grants between 1.5 million euros and 5 million euros. Let's support nature and build the Kiwa Initiative community together.
Can you do the next slide, please, Matilde? So this is the agenda that we're going to be covering. We're going to be looking at, in this talk, we're going to look at the key elements and what you're needing for a regional project grant, how you develop the regional project concept note, and then we're going to have our feedback from our Kiwa regional grantee, the ones who've been successful, which is our MyCoast project. And then there's a final checklist and a technical assistance available from SPREP and SPC, and we're going to cover what we can do and how we can help you. So Mathilde, would you like to continue?
Sure, thanks, Rebecca. Oh, no, sorry, this is...
Oh, wait, sorry. So we have the call for regional projects, and this is the key information that's needed. We need to know that needs to cover both national or from information from national or local authorities, public institutions, or an international NGO or regional crop agency. So they have to be also based out of the Pacific. A key criteria is that it has to be a nature-based solution for climate change, including adaptation, biodiversity conservation, preservation and management, and include components on gender equality, disability, and social inclusion. So it has to be a nature-based solutions focused project. The budget is between 1.5 to 5 million, but co-funding is also encouraged but not required. And in terms of geographical area, it has to include a minimum of 2 countries, that's why it's regional, or territories from our 18 eligible project countries or territories. So it's not eligible if it's only in one country, then it would be a non-regional grant, which is a separate call. And the other thing to really note is the implementation period has to be no more than 3.5 years, with a start around early 2026 and closing about mid-2029 at the very latest. So there is quite a short implementation period, so they have to be ready to implement on the ground quite quickly, so it doesn't have so it has to be able to work towards that. And I suppose the other thing to note is that the development of these projects has to occur, or the deadline is the 15th of December 2024. So developments from the 15th of July to 15th of December this year. So the key things you should check before you fill out all of these forms is, do you meet the eligibility criteria? Are you in the right place? Are you the right type of organization? And are you addressing the key themes needed? Because otherwise, well, it's a lot of work for being unlikely to get the grant. Do my activities also meet the requirements? So are you doing a nature-based solution which meets the requirement? And also, does the organization have the capacity to coordinate a regional project? All of this information is in the terms of reference, but yeah, really make sure that you do meet all of those criteria, because otherwise it's a lot of work. Yeah. So yeah, read that carefully. Next page. Oh, sorry. Now it's your turn, Mathilde.
Thanks, Rebecca. So for this session, we'll go in a bit more detail on how to go about developing your project concept note. So we won't go into all the specific headings. In each heading, you have a little description of what's expected, but more we want to guide you through some key steps that can help you in sort of designing a project in a way that will then make it easy to reply to all of the questions that are in the concept note in a concise manner. So I apologize in advance if you think that some of these guiding questions that we'll go about are seem a bit obvious or simplistic, but actually this is also based on the experience that we've had from previous calls and sort of that learning on how to start and completing your concept note, because it is a lot of work, as Rebecca mentioned. So yeah, we just want to provide all experience on how it went for other people previously, and yeah, it really starts with your problem statement. Unfortunately, we already have a lot of climate impacts in the region, and this has to be the bulk of where you're starting in your project and in your concept note. So really identifying the issues faced by the communities you want to work with and for, and that your project will be addressing. So if you don't have all the evidence at your project site in terms of studies and reports, then obviously you can draw on information that's available for similar settings. But really, this is where your references to issues related to climate impacts have to be highlighted, and building on those major climate impacts. And obviously, these are interconnected with many other societal challenges that your NDS project may seek to address. Water security, food security, income generation, livelihoods, etc. But really, starting from that problem statement, potential for droughts and how it affects crops, destruction of coastal assets and roads and houses, erosion, fires, coral bleaching now affecting marine life, and floodings. And yeah, so this is really your starting point for in your concept note and in your project concept, and then building on that problem statement, then you're sort of coming with your theory of change and what are the activities that you want to implement in your project. These have to be nature-based solutions, and so how these nature-based solutions are supposed to address the issues that you've just identified. And so at the site, so here are just some key questions that you may think, yeah, a bit easy, but it's just to take you through the thought process. So really, will your proposed activities address the issues identified at site? Are they technically feasible at site? Are they socially appropriate in terms of acceptability, in terms as well of land tenure? Land tenure is often a big risk and challenge in a lot of areas in the region. So this can be quite a risk. And so identifying as well some of those technical risks to your project activities. So once you've identified your activities, so what are the resources needed? What are the resources available to you at site and to your partners? Are you the capacity element? So are you and your partners in capacity to implement the activities that you've identified within the project timeframe? Again, what are the great challenges and risks to it? That can be transport, and can be even cyclone disturbing your nurseries. And again, yeah, trying to have the rationality of why would you implement nature-based solutions to address these risks, and not other options? What are the co-benefits of nature-based solutions? So all of this, it's really the key questions that the steering committee members will be looking at. And it's important that these come out clearly in the 15 to 20 pages of your concept note. So there's really quite a variety of nature-based solution options. So we can't discuss in detail all of those. So yeah, this is just suggestions and guiding questions to maybe go back to as well as you go deeper into your concept definition. And so key things to remember as well when you're defining your activities is that do they meet the Kiwa criteria? Rebecca mentioned, so First, they have to be about climate change adaptation, biodiversity conservation, preservation, and sustainable management. These are the two key criteria anyway for defining as a nature-based solution. And also, will they be contributing to gender equality, social inclusion, and disability inclusion, as well as all the other key requirements that are listed in the terms of references, in terms of regional approach, cost effectiveness, scalability, etc. And these are all as well aspects that you will need to highlight in your concept note. And again, they have to be nature-based solutions, so I won't go back. The definition, again, these are available in the IUCN Global Standard. We really recommend as well interested applicants to have a look again and refer again to the IUCN Global Standard for nature-based solutions, that because a lot of the Kiwa criteria actually speak to the nature-based solutions criteria. They're building on that framework. They're all interconnected. They include biodiversity net gain, inclusive governance, design at scale, adaptive management. They're really about good project design in essence. And so the IUCN has just launched a online tool where you can sort of assess your project idea against the nature-based solutions criteria, has a full list of indicators. You don't have to meet all of the criteria. Most projects don't, especially at the beginning phase. But it's really a useful tool to improve your project design as you go. And it will also have a lot of guiding questions that can help you in going deeper and designing better nature-based solutions. So yeah, really encourage you to have a look. You have a link here, but if you just type, and we'll be sharing the presentation afterwards, but if you just type IUCN online assessment tool for NBS, you'll find it easily. Another key area that needs to be clearly articulated in the concept note is your partnership. And it starts really by understanding, so you're the lead applicant, say, then why do you need to work with certain organizations, certain groups? Is it because you can't do some activities, because those partners can do it better? Why do you work with them? Because you have a historical partnership, or because they are the experts in the field? So all of this has to be really highlighted in the concept note and very concisely. So it has to be about, listing your potential partners, what will be their role, why work with them, and then as well, how you will intend to work with them. So in the Kiwa projects, there's just two ways of partnering with other organizations, either as on grantees, meaning that as the lead, you will sign an agreement, a sub-agreement with that partner so they can implement part of your project and some activity and deliver on some activities. So they'll be sort of co-responsible with you for the project implementation, or as service providers, so having actual contracts with partners for certain services. The key thing to remember is that the eligibility criteria, and so in your partnership and in the partners that you list as direct beneficiaries, they have to be one of the eligible, they have to meet the eligibility criteria, so be present in the region. So private companies, for instance, can only be integrated in the project through a procurement process and through your regular organization procurement processes, and can't be listed as direct beneficiaries. And again, for partnership search, SPC and us, SPREP, as part of the technical assistance, are available to help you with partner search. Another key element for Kiwa regional projects is that even in the design and development of your concept, it has to be participatory and inclusive. So if your project is not community driven, the impacted or communities to engage have to be consulted before, and it needs to have a reflection in your project design and in the concept note about who will be benefiting from your project, either directly, as in the community, for instance, who will benefit from the beach, and then indirectly, as for instance, the spillover benefits from your activity on site. And so, is it fair and equitable? And by fair and equitable, we mean, for instance, is it always the same community that is benefiting from conservation action? What about the one next door that maybe doesn't have all the historical partnerships? And then, if they're involved, who exactly in the community is involved? Having that understanding of the different groups in the community, people who can be sometimes marginalized or that are not always involved in decision making, but might actually be the ones doing the activities. Making sure that they have also been able to input into the project design. So not just say yes, but also being able to input the project design itself. For in indigenous and even local communities, that also can mean free, prior, and informed consent on the project that is either given or at least the process initiatives, because it is a ongoing process, SPIC. And have you been able to do some initial social impact assessments and risk analysis? So of course, at the concept stage, it's not possible to have a very detailed risk analysis and social impact assessments, but really the communities and the direct beneficiaries from that you want to work with for your project have to be engaged and consulted, and evidence that consultations were conducted should be included in your application. And it's similar for relevant authority support and engagement. So one of the particular attention will be given to projects with a strong either government level or provincial or local authority level participation. If it's not government or local authority driven, then they have to be engaged, supportive. So this is where usually you get, support letters as supporting document to your application, but also will they be involved in the implementation? This is recommended. And will your project be in line and contributing to any strategic action plan, international, regional, national, and local policies? We're really looking at ensuring that the activities proposed meet and can help national authorities meet their objectives and strategies, meaning as well that you're answering some priority needs that have already been consulted and identified previously. Once all of this is set up, you have your activities lined up, your partners sort of your modus operandi. A key other element in the concept note template is the logical framework. So starting from your problem identification, your theory of change, defining your project objectives in the short, medium, and long term, in terms as well of outcomes, so the longer term benefits that have to speak to the Kiwa objectives, so climate change adaptation, biodiversity conservation, as well as GEDSI. In the outcomes, outputs and your activities. And so developing indicators for these three levels with potential target, means of measurement, assumptions, and baselines, so you can measure impact. So again, at the concept level stage, it might not be possible to have all of your baselines, and all of this can be refined at the project during the appraisal or at the inception, and then regularly as the project is implemented. But at least in the concept note stage, you need to have key indicators, key targets, and indications where possible of baselines. These can be from previous projects, key assumptions. So all of this need to be included in the template that is provided. So yeah, just remember to keep it as it is. And yeah, have some reflection about your monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework. Are the targets realistic? It's in the sense that can you achieve them, but also are they ambitious enough? Because we do want to be driving change through these projects. Will I be able to measure and monitor their progress? And will I need maybe some support? And will my teams be able to do it? And if not, can I include resources for capacity development in it? And again, yeah, do I have indicators against the three Kiwa criteria? That really means, will you see at some point that you have contributed to the resilience of the communities, of the ecosystems in terms of benefit outcomes, but also that there will be positive social impacts, and that you have identified key measures to include it. And this can mean, I don't know, a percentage of one of the target groups that has increased resilience or capacity to implement nature-based solutions. It will very much depend on your project, and they have to be for the project. Especially at this stage, it's very short and concise. So really recommend in the concept note to keep to indicators that are for the project itself, meaning for all the sites and 2 or 3 countries and territories. So you can also highlight the regional aspect of your project, and that it makes sense to work at the regional level. And then yeah, developing your budget. This is also quite self-explanatory. Just remember to include all the specific Kiwa requirements, so 7% indirect costs, the annual audits, the midterm review, and the final review as well. They're all listed in the template, so also please meet the template and try to disaggregate the budget as requested in terms of geography, and where possible as well, yeah, per activity, human resources costs, and some of the key questions again for you that what will be assessed in your budget is really, is it cost effective? Is it realistic in terms of cost of living, transport, etc.? And does it cover all the services needed? And again, so for your budget, it's between 1.5 and 5 million. There's no indication of how much goes to one country or per territory. There's no maximum or minimum amount. It just has to be, yeah, realistic, and it has to just meet the objectives and the activities that you seek funding for. And yeah, the keynote for Kiwa is that the funding is 100%, so you don't need to co-fund part of the thing. It's just recommended to ensure the scalability and larger impact of your project. So yeah, once you've done all this, this will help you in terms of completing the concept note template. It's 15 to 20 pages maximum. And really, this is, all these grading questions was really so that you can answer clearly all of these headings, removing the italics and part of it, so just keeping the headings and then developing your project concept, theory of change, and activities in the 15 to 20 pages, and it really has to include all the key information there. So you can have annexes, but these really have to be just support letters, any further maps, studies or reports, especially from your consultations. If needed, again, to not modify the template. Check that you have completed all of the sections. There's quite a list as well on list of dimensions, etc. All of this has to be included. Again, just have a look at the list of requirements that is in the terms of references, because it will also really be a good checklist that you're meeting all of those requirements. And I think we can take a few questions here. I'll just take a few questions. So there was a strong focus on site level activities. Is there any guidance and potential regional level activities that will be eligible across all Kiwa countries? For the regional activities, oftentimes it's about capitalization or sort of learning, cross-project learning and sharing. So typically for these components, it would be about sharing the learnings from each site where needed. And if it's really if you don't have any regional level, like one of the projects that we have at the moment is around setting up a network. So that in itself is the regional approach that's needed. But then you can just do intra-project learning workshops if you want to train all your partners into one specific topic, or it's usually as well your regional governance level activities. All of this are usually eligible. Do you have standard indicators to share with applicants? There's a list. We don't have any standard indicators. You can look at the NBS standard from IUCN for some indicators, and then we're happy to help out if you have any specific standard indicators. But a lot of them, yes, would deal about if you're doing reforestation, it can be at your activities level be the number of hectares replanted, for instance, or if you're looking at biodiversity outcomes, looking at the number of insect species that are now present in your forest or in your sites, especially if you're doing agroforestry, for instance. Crop diversity in terms of income, it can be the percentage of beneficiaries that report increased income from your project, number or proportion of vulnerable groups that have been able to participate in your activities or to get funding for nature-based solutions. So there's quite a few. There's no standard Kiwa ones that we can share at this stage. They really have to be, and this will be reworked with the Kiwa Secretariat for the project that are selected.
Yeah, and they would also include things like survival rates if you're doing plantings of mangrove, survival rates and success of area, but an area that has been revegetated. And you could also do, for instance, if you're doing one which is watershed forestry establishment, you could, or health, you could look at the percentage of invasive cover versus native cover and how that's changed, or how you've gone from bare ground to the percentage of plants which have successfully turned into canopy cover or just even survived the first 2 years or something like that. So usually you choose your indicators based on what will be what are measurable and usually quite easily measurable without a lot of research, measurable to demonstrate that there has been a change. So for biodiversity, you're wanting things which are measurable and so you could do how many trees go into the ground, for instance, but your real measure of success will be something like how many have survived a certain number of years, because we know that there's a certain amount of mortality for that first within that first year. So you really want to know how well is the project going, but you don't necessarily want to have something which is very difficult and expensive to monitor, because that just takes away from the actual project. Yes. Maybe we should, how are we doing for time? Maybe we should continue, Mathilde. And we can, if we have time, we can do some more questions at the end. And I would like to invite our guest speakers for this next session. If we could invite Martin and Mike from MyCost to join us, or to turn on your videos and your microphones. So MyCost is a Kiwa regional grantee, so we thought it would be, or One Reef is, and the project's called MyCost, but I thought it'd be great, or we thought it would be great to have them tell us a little bit about their project, but also give us some recommendations. So I've got a few questions for them. Oh, I can't see you guys. Have you got your...
Yes, we do.
Oh, yeah, you're there. Okay,
Yeah.
yep. Thanks. Yeah, so there's Mike and Martin. Would you introduce a little bit about your project and a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. My name is Martin Romain. I am the regional project manager for the MyCoast project. So MyCoast means Micronesia CBFM as a nature-based solution for coastal resilience. So CBFM is community-based fisheries management, currently located in the United States.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Mike Gilbo. I'm calling in from Honolulu. And I serve as the project MEL officer, or we call it MEAL. We add accountability into that role. But Martin and I, along with several other folks, were part of the design team for the MyCoast project, and we're certainly happy to share what we experienced and what we gained and learned from the process.
Oh, thank you both for coming. I'm sure that your insights are very valuable for people who are thinking about applying next. So I've got a few questions here, and then I'll turn it over to you. But I suppose the first question is, what is your top recommendations for future applicants?
We have quite a few. I guess between Mike and I, I'm sure we have a couple that you'll find beneficial. One of the first one, I think, is really thinking about time commitment. I think that this process is rather demanding. So before really looking into, after the eligibility part, I think really look into the time that you can really dedicate to this, between engaging with your communities and being able to put all that product together. And knowing also that it's an iterative process. So, right, you're going to have your first take at putting that together. It will be reviewed, and possibly you may be requested to provide additional information. That in itself may take a couple of months. I can't remember exactly what it was for us, but certainly 16 plus months between when we first started writing and we were considered for funding. The next thing I think that is quite important, in addition to the capacity of the organization, is also the preparedness in receiving the grant. Not only yours, but also the on-grantees, so the other organizations that are going to be co-responsible for the implementation, specifically thinking about what you have in place right now that you can utilize and that would be considered acceptable by AFD for you to operate and operationalize this project. So what we mean by that, for example, is if your organization and your on-grantees have a policy guideline documents, and if you don't, specifically if it doesn't really include sufficient procurement policies, you will need to put it together a manual of procedure. You'd also need to think about your environmental and social safeguard commitment plan and the guidelines that follow that. And lastly, I think what we also had to put together is a communication and visibility plan. So these are all the other aspects that are part of the process. Maybe not at first when you're putting together and submitting your application package, but in this process, there will be other items that maybe right now you're not aware of. So be patient and make sure that you have the time to be able to commit to this. I think, Mike, lastly, I'll just mention what we call like leveraging your allies. SPC and SPREP are your allies. And we were very fortunate to have the help of SPC since this was a project really focused on community-based fisheries management. And we really found that having their support and receiving their feedback regularly was useful to us. Also, as we were really familiar with this application process and really understanding what is expected of AFD in being incorporated into this document. And the other ally that you have is your appendix. You do have to add the majority of your information into a 15 to 20 pages document. You are authorized, unless rules have changed, to utilize appendices to incorporate additional information that contributes to illustrating or providing more information on what you're anticipating to do. So use that also to provide this additional information, supporting documentation, etc., and tied really well to what your core documentation refers to. Mike?
Oh yeah, I'll just add something related to kind of the conceptualization of our project and some of the iterations we went through. At the beginning, we were approached by a colleague of ours that many of you might know, Wayne Andrew from Palau. And his vision for this opportunity was to connect organizations that were working on community-based fisheries, LMMAs, and that type of work. And we initially applied for the medium window through IUCN. And basically we were trying to connect several organizations across 3 or 4 countries. We were advised that maybe this wasn't the best window, that our project might be too ambitious for that level of funding. So we regrouped and we decided to apply for the regional funding opportunity. Now, that was a good thing for us, but one of the key things that I want to share is really consider the total number of partners and sites that you might want to include if you have a regional ambition, a regional vision, and that with every partner, with every on-grantee, with every site, with every country that's added, is added another level of complexity, right? We really appreciate all of the partners that we're working with, but we also recognize that it's a lot. And right now we're working with, I think, 7 on-grantees. We've lost a few along the way. But yeah, that would be my advice, is to be ambitious, but also be realistic and be practical. It always gets more complex than you initially think, and that might help you design a more practical and realistic effort.
Thank you. That was really good insights. I suppose the next question is about money. Can you make any recommendations in regard to developing the budget? And I suppose even structuring the budget, or, you know, that sort of thing.
We can have a couple, but I guess maybe some of the guidelines have probably changed a little bit. Back then, when we put together the main budget, we found that because our partners were all located in Micronesia, there was a lot of unnecessary columns, for example, in the budget. So what we decided to do is provide more clarity on the different jurisdictions we're working with and removing everything that was irrelevant. So that provides then the AFD, the donors, the reviewers with more information on items that we want to share. Something that we had to be very careful all along the way is making sure that we maintain a reasonable balance between implementation and administration cost. There is no magic value, there's no magic number. We decided to remain within 25 to 35% of admin to implementation, which is different to your overhead that remains at 7%. And another item that was really important for us is to keep in mind that we need to maintain a reasonable balance between your human resource and your non-human resource expenses, which was also requested by AFD at that time. So how much amount of money you're spending on people and anything else. And again, there is no magic number, but it has to be very well linked to your project design, your arrangement, and the type of activities that you're proposing to implement. For our project, for example, it is a lot, we're proposing, or we're implementing, our partners are implementing a lot of activities that are requiring a lot of people's time dedicated to working with communities, time to go out there on the ground in the field. And so our HR, human resource costs for some of these could be considered a little high, but our non-HR is low because we don't need materials and supplies and equipment. What we need is human capital. And so for some of those activities, we just had to justify it really well why it was so important for us to resource these activities in such a way.
Thank you.
Overall,
oh,
maybe one last thing, just for the budget. I think the summary budget is important, but as one of the appendix, we also provided actually details of how we would be actually spending our monies for some of those proposed activities. So we didn't keep it too general. We actually provided quite a bit of detail on still general amounts, but approximate amounts for such and such activities. So we tried to give a fair amount of information for the donor as an appendix. And that, again, is optional, I believe.
That's I think, very useful for people who are applying. I suppose the other question is about implementation. So how is implementing a regional project different from what you expected?
Mike, you want to start?
Yes, I certainly can. Well, I would say that we've started out a little bit slower than we anticipated, and it's almost like we're still in the planning phase almost, and then we've moved into implementation. So people might have heard this expression before. We're building the plane as we're flying it, and we're going back and forth between a lot of, hey, what did we have in mind? What were the intentions here? Do you want to revise anything? Versus assisting our partners directly with the activities that they've already had planned. And that it's a challenge that we're kind of working in both worlds, but it's certainly something that we can deal with. And we would have anticipated, knowing that, you know, all of our partners are different. They're dealing with different situations. They have different capacities, and we're just trying to be as flexible as possible in meeting their needs.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, Rebecca, another way for us to answer the question would be, how is implementing a regional project under the Kiwa initiative maybe different to what we expected? And I think in this case, what I found interesting is that the Kiwa Secretariat, AFD team, and all others, they're not giving you that donor pressure that oftentimes, or in other circumstances, donors would have on you, being very strict, very rigid. In this case, what we found is that they were actually supporting partners in helping us go through the process, in being flexible wherever flexibility would be allowed. And so this for us was different. So really having that relationship with the donor has been fantastic. So again, don't see AFD and all donors as this scrutinizing agent. It's actually going to be people that are going to be supporting you in doing what you do best.
Thank you. That's good comments. I suppose. Oh yes. Do you have any additional comments or suggestions for future applicants, based on, having gone through the process and also now implementing it? Anything that comes to mind?
Not specific. I think maybe we can take some question and leave some space for that. We're happy to answer any of those in regards to our experience, the project, any aspects of conceptualization, any sections of the template. I mean, we can leave some space for this. I'd be
Yep.
happy to make
Yeah,
the time.
if just type any questions you have in the thing. I'll just see if there's any.
Maybe one last recommendation, Rebecca, that I'm just thinking about here is based again on how long it takes for this process to go forward and to be completed. Make sure that the activities that you are proposing remain relevant in 1 or 2 years' time. So if it's something that your community needs immediately, this is not the best instrument, but it is something that they aspire to, and you can start contributing to it in, let's say, 16 months or so, then potentially consider including it. And as Mike mentioned, for us, there were some circumstances where we had to tweak and modify a few things because of the activities that we proposed at the time became slightly less relevant today.
Thank you. That's really good. I can't see any questions. Does anyone have any questions in the that they'd like to ask? I guess people are still thinking about them as well. Matilde, do you have any questions that you think that they would like answered, since we have these gentlemen present?
I would add one
Oh, yep.
additional item here is to really reach out to the technical advisors, right? The folks at IUCN and SPC. They are, I think, like Martin mentioned, a tremendous ally in terms of helping you think through all of these different steps, making sure that your logic is there, making sure that you're covering all of the requirements. Those people that helped us were indispensable in refining our concept and making sure that it was well written, easy to read, and covered all the requirements. So reach out to those folks and see if you can get their assistance.
Oh, thank you, Mike. That's a good advice. Yeah, and both SPC and SPREP, it's not just Matilde and I who are working on that. Of course, there is a wealth of knowledge at SPC and at SPREP, and they do cover like a lot of sectors, amazing amount of sectors. So yeah, so it's also about tapping into that expertise, which we can assist with. So yeah, that's a very good point. I don't see any other questions which have popped up. So there might be ones coming up later, but I suppose I think that was very useful and a really good insight. And yeah, and thank you so much, both of you, Mike and Martin, like for providing that insight, and yeah, and for, I suppose, showing that what's critical for both developing and implementing projects for the Kiwa, and what, how you can improve those and things like that. So yes, thank you both for your time. It's been most appreciated.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Matilde, should we continue with your with the presentation?
So yeah. Thank you, Mike and Martin, for the feedback. We've covered most of it. I was trying as well to reply to some of the questions in the Q&A section. Thank you everyone for sharing. I think this will be helpful for everyone. But I just wanted to wrap up with this sort of final checklist for applications. It's really about having a fully completed concept note at the end of the process in those 15 to 20 pages maximum, and the deadline for submission is 15 December 2024. Now this seems like it's in a long time, but as the MICOS team highlighted, it is a very lengthy process and time consuming as well. So we really recommend everyone to start early, and applications that are received after this deadline will not be considered, unfortunately. For the submission, it's quite easy. It's just an email to the Kiwa initiative, so no portal. Just send your concept note and any addendums and supporting document to this address, so the Kiwa initiative at IFDIP Wi-Fi. Similarly, they won't be accepting any application received through any other means. So yes, just please bear this in mind. And again, have a good look at every section and template and at the requirements in the terms of references where most information is available. So that's the
do we want to answer any more questions? We've got a few more. Sorry, I've been answering a few on this side, but we've still got a few to answer. Maybe people might find a few useful as general.
So there's one feedback that we've had, and it's that some proponents have applied 3 times without being successful. And can you give proper feedback to understand where we need to improve? So one of the particularities of the Kiwa Call for Original projects is that usually you receive feedback from the steering committee. So all the project proponents should have received that were unsuccessful. They should have received actually a summary of comments from the steering committee highlighting why they were not selected. So this, if you have received this document, this could be a good basis for this is the main feedback that is available to you. And then together with Rebecca, we can also sit down with you and review those documents and your concept note and see what was where things can be improved and why it wasn't successful. A lot of oftentimes really the projects that are selected are projects that are where the activities are well defined, where they meet all the Kiwa criteria, where the partnership is clear, and the regional scale is understandable, and also where as well they see that the lead has the capacity to implement the project, and as Marcus also mentioned, that also the own grantees have that capacity.
So there's another question here. How important is it that scientific data is generated, and will Kiwa support a proof of concept science for developing new methods such as ecological effective mangrove planting? And I suppose it's good to be clear that this is not funding for scientific research. This is funding for implementation for nature-based solutions. So it's not about generating scientific data. Some I suppose data could be generated like to validate the success of the project, but some of that could be quite easy, like how many plants survive if you plant, say, 100 plants, how many survive after 2 years? So you just go and count them all. So, this is not about developing new methods such as more effective mangrove planting. There is some a lot of knowledge about how to do these things out there. Some, of course, can be improved, but it's really not about reinventing things. It's actually about undertaking that nature-based solution on the ground and solutions. Yep. Hope that answered that question. Do you want to choose another one, Mathilde?
Yeah, I'll just let Martin reply to one of there is this one about the overall timeline and how much time is foreseen for the full project preparation itself, and is there any funding to support that phase?
Yeah, happy to describe this or what we experienced and how we did that. Faustine, we were actually surprised that actually there is no full project preparation requested. So your project document, what you're putting together in that 15, 20 page maximum plus appendices, is basically your core document. What you will receive, what we did, is a subset of comments, including requests for additional details on specific items. I think for us, we needed to provide additional details on jurisdictional context and specific connection to how our activities are actually contributing to addressing the climate change impact or contributing to climate change adaptation. So we had to provide very specific content in addition to the document we already provided. So that's what you could call a more full part of your project, but it's not a different, a new form or a new template. No, it's just addressing questions. And when it comes to funding, this cycle is not providing you funding to develop that. That is also part of preparedness. This is investment that your organization is putting towards you possibly accessing that grant. And so that is something you need to be prepared for in having part of your team dedicating its time to doing that. In our circumstance, it was particular. We were actually able to find another partner that was able to provide us with some support for the concept design part, but it was completely independent of the donor and AFD. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Martin. So yeah, it is a bit of an investment for national authorities. So our members at SPREP and SPC, through the technical assistance, were able as well to support a bit more. That this is specifically for members, for national, for government. And an important part as well of the technical assistance that's available from SPREP and SPC is that for projects that have requested it then and who may be unsuccessful to the Kiwa call for regional projects, our role is also to help you find other funding sources for some of your activities. So really, our role is to support applicants to the call for regional projects, but really what we want to see is just more nature-based solutions projects funded with our help. So for unsuccessful applicants, we're also able to help you in finding alternative funding sources where they're available and when available. I see we have a question from Deepa.
You can talk
Or
deeper,
raise your hand.
and if you have your question, you might be muted, but you should be able to speak. We're not hearing you, Deepa. Do you want to try turning your mic on? Or yeah, I don't know why we can't hear you. Do you want to type your question in the question box? I think we might just have to continue because I can't hear you, Deepa. But if you put your question in the question box, we can answer it later. But I suppose maybe it might be time to wrap up. So I suppose I would like to say thank you on behalf of the Kiwa initiative for attending this, and thank you also for considering applying for this project funding. And I suppose Matilda and I will be available to answer further questions and to support this process. And a particular big thanks to our MyCost team for attending this and for giving that insight into having a project and also developing a project, because that's very both interesting but also a really good, I suppose, stock take of what you need to do and how you do it. Yeah. So so thank you everybody, and with that we shall be ending this session. Oh, and Mike, would you like to say something?
Deepa's question has come up in the question and answer box. So her question is, my question was on the role of SPC and SPREP. Are they involved in the project design?
Oh, yes. Thanks for that, Mike. That's actually a very pertinent question, and maybe is a good one to emphasize now as well. Yes, we are involved in the project design. We're also involved with helping connect partners together and help connecting partners with governments if required, and helping governments find nature-based solutions that they would like to implement because they know what problems they have. So we're involved in all different aspects. So yes, please send us an email if you would like support. Yeah, so there is quite a lot of different things that we can do, but also we have, like I said, that technical expertise backing us with SPCs, many like forestry or fisheries, the experts sitting there, and the same, we've got the same sort of expertise at SPREP with people working in a lot of different fields. So there is that sort of expertise to tap into. So yes, I suppose that's a good point to wrap up. But thank you all very much for attending, and we hope this was useful.